Welcome to the Aux Framework Beta Release Overview. The Aux Framework is an open source general use Python framework for Houdini. It lives between the Python scripts and the Houdini object model, specifically accessing the Who module. So that means anytime we are writing any scripts in Houdini, instead of accessing the Who module directly, we can leverage the methods and functions of the framework to write any of that tedious or complicated code. There were two main drives for creating this framework. One, I wanted a lightweight object-oriented framework to follow the principles of dry, don't repeat yourself, or sharing the code between modules more easily, and then also in keeping the framework very simple so that it would be easy to maintain and scale. The second driving factor being autocompletion. Not just for the Who module, but also autocompletion for creating new nodes and for accessing their parameters and even menu options. And I'll show you a little bit more about that later. First, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of the Aux framework in action. I'll show you how the autocompletion works, and finally I'll show you how to add new nodes for autocompletion and how to update existing nodes for autocompletion. In this quick toolbar script, I'm just creating a sphere node, modifying a couple of the parameters, and adding in a button with a quick little script just to print. After I do that, I'll show you the way to do it with the Aux framework and the differences between the two. Okay, so first, this should be pretty familiar to you. We're just accessing the nodes and parameters and doing a little bit of parm template work. To do that, we pass in the names of the node types, we pass in the names of the parameters. For the menu, I'm doing a little dictionary lookup so that I can use the label as found in Houdini, and then it goes and we'll match that to the correct menu item, which is the name of that belongs to that menu label. Okay, so what this looks like, if we run this, we get our geo node, sphere node, and it set the uniform scale to 0.5, frequency to 1, and added my button. So I can test my button and it works. Okay, I can delete that. All right, now for the Aux part. So in the Aux framework, we have the idea of an Aux node. And what an Aux node is pretty much a wrapper around the Who module nodes. For example, once we have an Aux node, let's take the sphere node. Seeing the autocomplete comes up with a lot of methods that were added for the Aux framework. And so any of these, such as, let's see, get children nodes by type, we can get all of the children nodes and pass in a certain type, and it'll only return the children nodes that match that type. So a lot of handy methods, easily accessible for these Aux nodes. Again, these are wrapped up. Each of these nodes, it holds in memory the Who node, so it acts on that node. Okay, and then down here we see the big difference. Here are the big differences. Anytime we are accessing a parameter, we do parm underscore, and then the parameter name will show up. If it is a menu parameter, we can then type in dot menu underscore, and we'll see all the menu options show up. So here we see for the type field for sphere, all the options that are available. So I don't need to go into Houdini and look and see what's available and get the string typed in just right. Instead, I have autocomplete here available and it's going to be 100% right all the time, unless the node updates, but that's something I can cover later, how to fix. Oh, so this by itself, just by accessing this member, this menu item from this parameter, this will actually set the parameter to that menu option in Houdini. And then these down here, we're no longer needing to explicitly call the parameter.set. Instead, we just have an equal sign, and the Houdini, or the Python magic behind the scene, will use set to update those values. And then down here, we have a convenience method for creating a button parm template. It's convenient because we'll have things like script callback language set to Python by default. Then after that, we just add that parm template. And this does all the necessary things that are done up here, that multi-step process. It'll get a copy of the parm template group, update it, and then set the parm template group so that it'll show up correctly. All right, this should work the same as before. There we go. So this was all using the aux, and we can see button 2 from that second script is indeed running. So overall, what we see is the big differences are we don't need to type strings by hand. So this eliminates a lot of user error. And if a name of a parameter changes or a menu value changes, we would only need to update it in the framework and not in all the scripts that we might find it in. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is how the auto-completion works behind the scenes and what the aux nodes look like. Okay, so here's a sphere node that we were working with earlier. It inherits from the aux node. The aux node basically has all of the methods for generic node methods. Okay, and so we can see here we have the parameters that we would find for that node in Houdini. We also have some parameters that are of a menu type, and we can see that this is how we were able to autocomplete, and that these options mapped to a value that is valid for that parameter in Houdini. Now this would be a lot of code to write for every different Houdini node. Good news is I didn't write any of this code. Nobody did. This was auto-generated. Thanks to Houdini's incredible Who nodes, we are able to piece together these classes pretty instantly, and with very few exceptions as to for them to work as expected. And even those exceptions have some pretty easy workarounds. Okay, so for example, so not all the nodes are present, and we can add any node in at any time. We can also update any node at any time that we want. Okay, so looking at my geo nodes, autocomplete, I don't have a torus. So if I go over to Houdini, I have my torus here, and I could actually have any number of nodes here that aren't added, and whatever are selected, when I hit node class generator, that will generate the code. And this would have showed up in the logging if I had a deeper logging level set. Okay, so now if we go back to the code, course is now there. Okay, let's check that out. So this was all brand new code just generated. Has all the parameters we want. Menu options for the parameters that have menus. So all those auto completion features are there. Inherits from the Aux Node. Shows all that functionality. So that's how that works. All right, that concludes the overview of the Aux Framework tool. I have this all up on GitHub. I will have a link in the description. Basically, this is set up as a Houdini package. You can install it like such, and that'll give you access to the toolbars that I was showing you earlier. And this second button, regenerate node classes, this will actually take all the Aux nodes that were generated and regenerate them. And that is good for new versions of Houdini to go ahead and update all those nodes as the parameters may have changed. Okay, so let me know in comments if you'd like a video on how to set up, get started working with the framework, or if you'd like to know more about the framework, such as logging and other features. Yeah, just let me know in the comments.